What's going on, guys? Fantasy hockey expert here. Today we're going to be going over the Chicago Blackhawks and their fantasy hockey value for 2025 to 2026. Season's about 27 days away now, and we are underway with our 32 and 32. So if you haven't seen our beginning of our series, we've gone over Anaheim, Boston, Buffalo, Carolina, and I believe one more team, which I must have missed somewhere. But anyways, let's get started with our Chicago Blackhawks and our top three players, as well as some line combinations that you might see this season. So we're going to start off in net today. We're going to get into Spencer Knight of the Chicago Blackhawks, a guy who was traded there about a year ago, probably even less, probably 8 months ago from the Florida Panthers. He's been through a lot, but he is finally appealing in fantasy hockey, and let's talk about it. So last year, we had Peter Mrazek guarding the net for the Chicago Blackhawks, and we had a lot of value in him. If your hockey league counts saves, starts, things like that, then you're actually going to be looking at a lot of guys such as Askarov, Knight, a lot of low-end hockey teams and their goalies. You're going to be looking at those guys to get you, call it 50 starts. And even if they lose 30 of those starts, you're getting value, right? So Spencer Knight is the third most valuable guy on the Chicago Blackhawks, strictly for the reason that he's going to start you 50 games. You also have Arvid Soderblom in net, and you also have a guy that the Hawks just signed to a PTO, I believe. So you have a bit of competition for the backup role, but I don't see much happening other than Spencer Knight getting better and better. So to mention regular leagues, you're going to look at Spencer Knight in the late rounds, possibly just an undrafted guy that you pick up. But in keeper leagues or dynasty leagues, you're going to want to target Spencer Knight before you target some veteran goalies. Some of the veteran goalies that you're going to want to avoid might be some guys on better teams, such as an Andrei Vasilevsky or even just a backup guy on a good team, especially a guy like Darcy Kemper, who is aging. Not to say that you draft Knight above these guys, but you're going to want to look at Knight in those mid-rounds before he gets taken, because you're going to struggle to find really good potential later in the draft. So he's our third guy, currently not ranked in the top 25 by NHL Fantasy in standard leagues, but he is up there in keeper leagues. Let's get into number two. This is a forward in Frank Nazar with dual eligibility, possibly even tri-eligibility if he can play a little left wing this year. So Frank Nazar is a first-round pick of the Chicago Blackhawks 2 years ago, and he, despite being a little undersized for the NHL, he can rip the puck. So he had just under 20 goals. I think he had 15 goals last year playing alongside Connor Bedard for a little bit of the season, but we didn't really get to see the chemistry build outside of a few nice 2-on-1s there. Now, Bedard will be playing with Nazar, and that's why Nazar is number 2 on this list. He can shoot the puck. He might be a little physical this year. We're going to see about that. But he's going to get you your power play points along with the random quarterback of that power play, which could be Sam Rinzel, could be Kevin Korchinski, could also be really anybody. So that's why we don't have a defenseman on our top 3 list here, but I believe Frank Nazar could have a bit of a breakout year. He's not worth looking at in regular leagues on draft day, but if you're in a keeper league, dynasty league, maybe a Fantrax league, which I'm in personally, you want to look into Frank Nazar if he's not already kept or in your minor system. So that leads us to number 1, which you probably guessed it by now. Looking at our thumbnail, it's Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard, people like to say he had a down year. People like to say that a lot of guys have down years. People said that Matthews had a down year because of his injury. People like to say that McDavid has down years, but again, what's a down year nowadays, right? So Bedard had a year where he wasn't able to hit the 30-goal mark, and he wasn't able to have over 90 points. But this could be the year that Bedard breaks out and Bedard has a couple multi-goal games, lays the body a little, makes a big impact, maybe has a couple big games against some rivals. We saw he did play the Winter Classic last year. Bit underwhelming in that sense, but Connor Bedard is a guy that you're going to want to look at. Very, very interesting little fact here is he might get dual eligibility, and that would really spike his value, actually putting him above Macklin Celebrini in fantasy hockey. So what does that mean? If he does get the right wing and left wing eligibility, maybe playing with a guy like Donato up the middle, then you're going to be able to place him on your right wing or left wing slots on your roster app. So maybe you play Yahoo Fantasy or ESPN Fantasy, and that's going to really help your value for Bedard, because you're going to be able to place him on really any spot or any forward slot in your lineup. Now, Bedard's currently ranked outside the top 50 for forwards. Do I agree with that? Yes. If you watched our last video on the Carolina Hurricanes, you have Seth Jarvis and Sebastian Aho between 40 and 50. And that value is just a bit above what Bedard is this year. So Bedard might be better than those guys eventually, and I think he will. But this year, he's limited with his line mates. He's got Donato / Chervainen / Nazar / Nick Foligno, right? So not much value there. And with Sam Rinzel as your power play quarterback, you're not very excited. So I think that's a downgrade from the Seth Jones that we saw a little last year on Chicago. And that's why, although Connor Bedard is our number one spot, it's really important to know that if you're not in a keeper league, you do not overpay for this name value. So one video that I will be making for you guys is going to go into name value and the premises of it. What is name value and how you can avoid getting fleeced in fantasy leagues, because there are a lot of players out there, Shane Wright, Miro Heiskanen, even sometimes Connor McDavid, where their name value gets a bit ahead of you. And depending on your league settings or league categories, you're going to get fleeced. You're going to end up giving away lots of value. It could be in the hit category. It could be in the shots on goal category. And that's why you really need to be careful when drafting these players that are well-known and I would say liked or former first overall picks. So Bedard, Nazar, and Knight are our top three players here. Your sleeper pick for the Chicago Blackhawks really could be Sam Rinzel as the PP1 quarterback, but it also could be a guy like Kevin Korchinski, because he was such a high pick as well in the draft. There's not really anyone else on offense you're going to want to look at. They have a couple young prospects. You got Oliver Moore there. But again, with Anton Friedel not being on the team this year, probably heading back to Sweden, you're not really want to look at him unless you're in a keeper league. I was lucky enough to draft him in my Fantrax Hockey League a few days ago. I'll be doing a recap of my draft where I actually took a few studs. I took Patrick Laine, Erik Karlsson, a few others there. A couple of young guys like Roger McQueen. I took Isaac Rosen, Yuri Kulich, just a couple studs there. So that's going to wrap up our Chicago Blackhawks talk. I'm going to be back tomorrow with our video on the Colorado Avalanche. So it was really tough finding just three guys to list for our top three players there, but definitely improvement from our Chicago Blackhawks preview. So I'm a fantasy hockey expert. Make sure you guys subscribe and drop a comment. Let me know what you think of this Blackhawks team preview and what do you guys want to see, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, or any of our socials. So that's going to be it, and we'll see you guys soon.